Welcome back to the Impact Driven Leader podcast. This is your host, Tyler Dickerhoof. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Man, excited that you're here. Excited this month to introduce this book, Atomic Habits, sitting right here on my desk. There it is by James Clear, book that was released 5 years ago. And why I picked this book? Well, as I was going through this year and I was questioned about a month ago about the book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And I shared with someone that's like, man, it's probably one of my top 5 leadership books of all time. And I started going through the list and I started thinking, all right, I've featured a few of those books so far in the book club, but there's a couple that I haven't. So this month and next month are 2 books that are really meaningful to me if I think about my journey, how they've impacted me. And this is what was fun. I did not realize how much this book impacted me until I started preparing for this podcast and until I started reading it again to be able to share within the Impact Driven Leader Book Club. I'm excited to introduce this book. If you have not read the book Atomic Habits, man, I'm excited to invite you to join us this month here in June to read through it. If you have read it, this is what I would encourage you. Go back, read it like I did again with new eyes, thinking about, all right, this is how I've actually implemented some of these tools that James has shared. Or, I encourage you to do what I'm asking the book club to do. Pick a new habit. Pick a new habit and really develop over the next month. Now, you can join part in this by being a part of the Impact Driven Leader Book Club. You can send me a message. I will gladly invite you into that private group. You can do so at tyler@tylerdickerhoof.com. Or if you're part of our weekly newsletter community, you will get that invite as part of that as well. But let me share a little bit of information about this book, Atomic Habits, written by James Clear back in 2018. It was published in that time. In 5 years, it has sold over 15 million copies. It's been routinely one of the #1 selling books on the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Amazon. From week to week, month to month, year to year, it continues to be a very impactful book. And that's why I'm excited to share it here. It's been, again, one of the top 5 books that I feel I've ever read. And let me share a little bit about what James Clear shares in this book. He shares the 4 laws of behavior change. We'll go through this. I'll share a few stories, a few items that I really connected and related back to. But I'm going to share these 4 laws. You can take notes. You can, as you're following along, if you have the book, even pull it out and just kind of, again, refresh your memory. The first thing is he relates is make it obvious. That's law number 1. Number 2, make it attractive. Number 3, make it easy. And 4, make it satisfying. See, James shares within the book that in all of the study and all of the practice that he had, and he shares a great perspective where that came from. It was really following the cue, craving, response, reward pattern. Those 4 items obviously connect to the 4 laws. Make it obvious. It's a cue. A craving, make it attractive. Response, make it easy. And then make it satisfying is the reward. If we look at the different habits that we embrace, good or bad, in our life, they usually follow that pattern. There's some type of cue that sets us into, I'm going to do this. James breaks it down in several different spreadsheets, per se, tables within the book of this rubric of what it looks like for these different habits in our life. All right, in the middle of this conversation, I just want to take a moment to invite you, if you're not a subscriber to the Impact Driven Leader newsletter, to go to the Impact Driven Leader /free course. You're going to get the 4 days to maximum impact video series as well. Submit you into my email sphere where you can learn more about the Impact Driven Leader community. So now back to the rest of the episode. But let me share a little story that James shares in the book that, quite honestly, I forgot about. Because it's been years since I've read the book, but it reminded me of how impactful life-changing events are. See, it opens up the book and James shares a story when he was a sophomore in high school. He was in PE class and he got hit square in the face with a baseball bat. Now, his classmate accidentally let go of the baseball bat, flew, hit him in the face, breaking his nose, his eye sockets, crushing in his face, so much that he started bleeding from everywhere, not realizing where the blood was coming from. They tried to get him to the nurse at the school, and he ended up going unconscious, having seizures. They get him to the hospital. This major ordeal where it was quite impactful for his family. See, his family had had similar experience in hospitals, the same Cincinnati Children's Hospital with his sister 10 years before when she had leukemia. And it was from that event that James was pretty impacted. So he was a high school baseball player. As a sophomore, he was able to not make it back for that season, but the following seasons tried out and struggled to even make it into the team. He was cut. His senior year, he played on varsity, and he was able to, get this, play 11 innings, just a little over one game. And see, it was from that time that James devoted to habits, doing the work, not knowing where it could ever go to. He went to a small university in Ohio called Denison University, where he ended up making the baseball team. Here's a guy who was cut from varsity as a junior, had to play JV as a junior, barely played at all as a senior, and yet committed to the process of doing the work with the sole desire of being able to play college baseball. His dad was a minor league baseball player, and obviously that was something that he aspired to do as well. Now, through embracing the process of habits, these atomic habits, these small, little, almost minuscule, unrecognizable habits that when they all added up, they created a 6'4", over 200-pound academic All-American, a team MVP, an all-conference pitcher. From a kid who was cut as a junior, played 11 innings as a high school senior. Now, I spent a little bit of time sharing that story that's in the introduction from James because I was reminded so much about how impactful, life-changing events can create habits. See, we see all the time people that have habits that are maybe destructive, people that are trying to get through life-changing events their own, and they succumb to habits of coping mechanisms that are, probably very destructive in their life. And see, from that event, James decided to go down a path of how do I get better? How do I commit to it? How do I commit to doing all the things that are going to yield the results that I desire, even when everyone else maybe wants to be against it? See, in college, he didn't go out and party with the rest of his classmates. He was committed to the process of learning, of growing, of working out, of getting stronger, of being healthier in order that he could reach his goal of being a college baseball player. See, it was making it obvious, then making it attractive, making it easy, making it satisfying with each small little habit that James was able to get where he wanted to go. Now, in the first chapter of the book, James shares the impact of making small little changes on the British cycling team. The British cycling team had notoriously been underachieving. In their almost 100-year history, they had won one medal. That's it. One medal in 95 years. And there was a commitment from the then director, Dave Brailsford, to do better. And so they started looking through all the different components, all the different pieces and parts that were a part of the life of each cyclist. From what they ate, how they slept, how they recovered, the setting of the seat, the lubricant used on the chain, the tires, the air pressure, the everything. In all of that, they said, how can we make it just a little bit better, just 1% better? The results, after 5 years, from 2003 to 2008, they went to the Beijing Olympics. And at that event, British cycling won 60% of the available medals. They went on to set world records, Olympic records, all sorts of things. How did they do it? By committing to small changes. These atomic habits. See, if you want impactful results, make small changes into atomic habits. Create this habit. See, whether it was from James or other notable authors in the last few years that have really gone on to write about habits, we've soon understood that it takes longer to ingrain a habit than we first thought. See, I remember growing up for many, many years, this thought, it takes 21 days to build a habit. And that's commonly been held and thought about. But now we're understanding it takes much longer. It takes anywhere from 65 to 70 days. See, if you commit to that process, man, it's amazing what you can accomplish over time. Well, there's another piece to this, as I encourage you listening, or if you're a part of the book club, to embrace a new habit, whatever that may be. Now, as part of embracing the habit that James shares is first embracing the identity of that habit. Maybe it could simple as, for James being a writer. He had to first embrace the identity of being a writer. He would write small little things. He would publish them. Slowly but surely, he started to gain a following. After many, many years, he had over 100,000. Now it's in the millions of people that wanted to read his writing. That's why Atomic Habits has gone on to be such a successful book. It's maybe new information, but yet the credibility from James has already been there. See, embrace the identity of your habit. James first embraced the identity of, I am going to write to share what I've learned with others. I'm writing in order to fulfill a purpose. Several years ago, actually in 2018, much when this book came out, I was encouraged by then a coach of mine to start reading Proverbs, the ancient book from the Bible, written by Solomon some thousands and thousands of years ago. He encouraged me. We both together started reading Proverbs every day. That was an encouragement. Why? Because I wanted to identify with the habit. I wanted to grow in wisdom. I wanted to be someone who is wiser, someone who is more patient, someone who is just a better person. So I started reading. And I utilized the app, YouVersion Bible app. Why? Because it made it easy and simple to track. It kept me accountable. I invited a few people into it. You're going to hear about this a little bit later in this podcast. Invited a few people into it. And here's what really drove me. There would be mornings that I had not built it into a habit yet, had not been ingrained in my daily routine. And I would see a friend, maybe it was my friend Sean, who got up early, and he commented that he read it. And I was like, I got to get my reading in. See, the value of community when you're embracing the identity of a habit is the community that you want to be a part of. I wanted to grow in wisdom. I had friends and people around me that were willing to embrace that for themselves as well. So we collectively committed to it. Now, I don't know where those friends are now, but I can sit here and I look at my YouVersion app for 257 weeks. I have been reading Proverbs every single day. So much that I can't read a verse or a chapter without knowing that I've read it many, many, many times. But yet, every single day as I read it, it's different. It catches me in a different light, in a different way. See, I've committed to that habit of identity. First and foremost, the identity of wanting to grow in wisdom, be a better person. The next piece of it is the next subject I'll share with you here, the value of tracking. Now, the YouVersion Bible app had that built into it. It's part of their genius of building it into where you can have community and accountability, and it tracks it. I have not tracked the 257 weeks, the almost 1,800 days, but they have. If you go back into the archives of this podcast, the Impact-Driven Leader podcast, you'll find episode 13 where I speak with my friend Mike Nielsen. And Mike, in that, it's titled Earn Your X, shares a story from Jerry Seinfeld. See, Jerry Seinfeld, the great comic author, the great comedian, has committed to every single day writing a joke. And he has a calendar on his wall, and he has it Earn Your X. So every single day, he marks off an X. Now, that's a commitment that I've committed to and the accountability of it. But here's what happens. Life happens. There's actually been 2 instances where I know that I've read, but my tracker has been thrown off. And that happened just a few weeks ago when we were on an international trip. And for some reason, when you go across the date line, some apps have a hard time identifying what day it is. So it actually says I'm on day 35 right now, even though I know that I've done it for 257 weeks. See, part of earning your X in this item that James shares as well is never miss twice. There will be days that you miss. There will be times that you miss. There will be days that when you track, you miss. Okay, that happens. But never miss twice. Start a new chain, whatever it may be. You see, what's funny to me in this idea of tracking and creating this chain, I think back my early professional career. My early professional career, for those of you that have been listening in, you may know that I was a nutritionist for dairy cows. I worked in the Central Valley of California, traveling from Escondido, California, where I worked with my friend Frank, all the way up to Modesto, California. And everywhere in between. That's about a 600-mile stretch. I drive a lot. And as part of driving, I would track my fuel consumption. Why? Because I wanted to see how much fuel my vehicle was using. I tracked for thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of miles. Every single tank, I recorded how much fuel, the price, what the fuel efficiency was. I built a spreadsheet to track this. I was quite enamored by tracking it. Why? Because I always wanted to beat it. I always wanted to know what it was. I created this spreadsheet on and on. I have spreadsheets now that I use. I enjoy the tracking. I enjoy seeing the results. And see, James shares that a lot in this idea of building habits. Create something you can track. Some people like tracking more than others. Fine. You find an app like I did that does it for you, or find ways to create a game out of it. I do this myself. Everywhere I drive in town, if I'm taking my son to soccer, if I'm going to basketball, I'm going to baseball, I'm going to whichever of my kids' activities, I have a habit of using Google Maps. I prefer that over Apple or Waze. It just fits me best. And as I do that, I love to put in the destination. See the time, the allotment. Maybe it's 19 minutes. Well, can I do it in 18? See, that journey to be better drives me. It drives me because it's the value of tracking. Not because it matters, but it's always committed to saying, am I getting better? And that's really what this is about. And one other element that James shares within Atomic Habits, building habits, I've already alluded to a little bit, is habit stacking. Well, where does habit stacking fit in? Well, if you think about the idea that it takes 65 to 70 days roughly to build a new habit, over the course of a year, if you add in a new habit every 65 to 70 days, this year, over the next 12 months, you could add in 5 new habits. See, it's a lot easier to start with 1 than it is with 5. And as you start with 1, it just adds in and it creates stacking. And it's one becomes the component of another. I've embraced this in my life. I've actually done this in my life, and it was fun rereading Atomic Habits and realizing the different habits that I've built into my life that make me what I am today. I shared about Proverbs. That's one habit that I've built. I started there. And then I also understood the value of reading every day. So I added in a daily reader. First started with the Maxwell Daily Reader. And then I moved to reading a book that sat on my shelf for more than a decade. The Daily Drucker. Read that a couple times. I've added in some Robert Greene. Now I'm reading some Robert Greene, a few other books, and some Bear Grylls. Why? It's a little different, but it's adding, continuing to add. See, this is what I know. When you add 1 to your current set, it's not overwhelming. But when starting 5 new, man, it's daunting. I encourage you, whatever you're trying to accomplish in life, maybe you want to lose weight. That's fine. Don't start by trying to eat better and work out and watch less TV. And those are all things you need to maybe do in order to do it. But start with 1. Create that as a habit. I have a friend, D, who's actually on that journey himself. And I know he's committed to the eating healthier part, and he's doing great. There will be a time here in the next few weeks where it's like, all right, now really commit to doing that and working out. You don't have to do, yeah, you can do both. But I find too often people get overwhelmed. If you want to start reading more and writing and working out and eating better and watching TV less, sure, you can be committed to all of those. But that entire array is daunting. So start small. Start with atomic habits, small little changes. Start with the identity. I want to be healthier. Great. What does healthier look like? I'm going to commit to eating better. Well, what does eating better look like? I'm going to eat less sugar. I'm going to have better meals throughout the day. I've recently done this myself. In the last few weeks after my family's gotten back from Spain, I committed to, I need to be better. Dropped a few percentage points body fat, dropped about 10 pounds, feel better, in better shape, committing to work out. Now it's fueling itself. I want to see how much better can I get? How much better shape can I be in at 44 than I was at 40 or 34? That's just a commitment. Why? Because it's worth trying. It's worth challenging myself. Here's the last piece. It's the 2 minutes can change a life. In the book, James shares about a reader who reached out to him and shared this anecdote, which I've actually seen replicated in a few fitness studies. He committed to 2 minutes a day. He was going to go to the gym for 2 minutes a day. That's it. Walk into the gym, hop on the treadmill, run, walk, jog for 2 minutes, hit stop, walk out. He was going to walk in the gym. He was going to lift a few weights. He was going to set his timer for 2 minutes. Once 2 minutes hit, he walked out the door. Why do you do that? A couple things. 2 minutes isn't overwhelming, but 2 minutes creates the habit. And James shares about others who have this same thing. There's a dancer he shares, and she commits to doing that. Every single morning she wakes up, she puts on all of her workout gear, she calls the cab, and off to the gym she goes. And see, the interesting piece, as James identifies, is it's not getting to the gym. It's not doing that exercise, that jog, that whatever it may be, that 10 minutes that gets you into it. For some, it may be just putting on their running shoes. Because once they put on their running shoes, they know, I need to go work out. It's that cue coming back to the very beginning that creates then a craving and then a response and a reward. If you do enough to cue whatever you want to do, and 2 minutes is all it takes to change your life. Put on your shoes. Read that book. As you're making your morning coffee, have something right beside it to where you can read it. Maybe not scroll through your phone. See, 2 minutes is better than 30. 2 minutes is better than 60. 30 minutes of workout, hey, if you're not conditioned to it, if you're not used to it, it can be painful. It can be daunting. 2 minutes, anybody can do 2 minutes. 2 minutes is no big deal, right? Everyone can handle 2 minutes. See, as I finish up here, that's what I want to share with you. Atomic habits aren't about big, deep endeavors. Small little changes that make impactful results. See, as leaders, we all have that opportunity. Now, I share it as part of my 5 R's of mindset. The routine. What routine do you have? What routine are you committed to? If you have a routine committed to being better, as I've shared with you, I've done over the last 5 years, you're going to end up being better. You're going to create change in your life. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's small, incremental changes. That's what's so magical about James's book. That's why it's sold over 15 million copies. That's why it's impacted lives all over the world. Because it gives freedom, not to make wholesale changes. Wholesale changes might come, but it's through small atomic habits. Again, I thank you for tuning in, watching, listening to this episode. I'm excited to read this book with everyone again and see what habits we can build over the next month. Because I know the small little habits are going to create massive change. One last thing, if you're not a subscriber to the Impact Driven Leader newsletter I send out each Friday with a recap of the week, also introducing each podcast episode, click on the link either in the show notes to get the newsletter, which also includes a free video course, 4 videos, just to set you up 4 days to maximum impact. Love to share that with you, but as well, you'll get each weekly email. It's a way for you to get started, to get involved in the community. Through that, you'll find also an invitation to the book club. Would love to have you part of that as well. And read Atomic Habits with me and everyone else this month. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. One last thing. If you got value from today's episode or any of the previous episodes, I would be extremely thankful and grateful to share with someone else. Not for me, but for authors like James, who do so much to impact this world. You can impact the world as well by sharing this information and adding value to them. Use this platform. Use this to do so, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to wherever you're listening to podcasts. Thanks for being here. Until next time, have a good one.